The Mediterranean and Middle Eastern people are famous for their sweet tooth, or is that sweet teeth? Let me show you my version of the famous nut-filled Greek pastries called Kataifi, rolls of pastry stuffed with nuts and soaked in rich sugar syrup. It's based on a pastry also called Kataifi. This is Kataifi pastry. It comes in thin, white strands and it resembles vermicelli. It's not only used in Greece, but also throughout Turkey and the Middle East. It's sometimes also called Kataifi or konafa. It's made by pouring and shaking a flour and water batter through a sieve onto a hot metal plate. You can make your own, but it's easier to buy it. It's available in Greek, Turkish or Middle Eastern stores. Now our recipe is divided into three. We have the filling and the pastry and the syrup. Let's take a look at our ingredients. Over here is the filling ingredients. We've got 2/3 of a cup each of walnuts, pistachios and almonds. The almonds have been blanched and everything's been chopped up into quite small pieces. We've got 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg and we've got some cinnamon. We've also got 1/2 cup of sugar. We've got 500 grams of our Kataifi pastry and 250 grams of unsalted melted butter. And for the syrup, we've got 2 cups of sugar, 1.5 cups of water, into which we're adding 1 cinnamon stick, 4 cloves, a couple of strips of lemon zest, and a drizzle of lemon juice. First thing we're going to do is make our sugar syrup on the stove. We're going to pour some water into our lovely Paderno copper pot, into which we're adding some sugar. I prefer raw sugar actually for sweet making. Give that a little stir. We're going to add the rest of our ingredients at this point. The cinnamon stick, the cloves, the little drizzle of lemon juice, and the lemon zest. You know, the confectionery and sweet preserves affection has been around for many, many years. Confectionery and sweet preserves were well loved in ancient Greece. They featured in the most sumptuous of Athenian banquets. The famous Greek medical author Dioscorides named sugar saccharon or saccharum after the Sanskrit sarkara. Now you need to cook your syrup for about 10 minutes. Over here we have a thick, rich batch of syrup that's been cooked for 10 minutes. It's thickened up very nicely, and the wonderful flavour of the lemon, the cloves and the cinnamon has folded through, and it's very, very aromatic. This is going to be drenched over the beautiful pastries at the end. Now over here we're going to mix up our pastry filling. What we need to do is add our nuts, very, very straightforward. We've got our almonds, we've got our pistachios, and there's our walnuts. On top of which we're putting our cinnamon and nutmeg and our sugar. That just needs to be folded through. Some cooks I've seen pour a little bit of syrup in here and make sort of solid bits of filling, but we're going to do it dry. Now, what we need to do is to open up our Kataifi pastry. What I've done here is I've placed 1 packet of Kataifi pastry, and here's a little clue. If you're going to make your Kataifi pastries in a warm kitchen, keep them covered up with a damp cloth after you've unwrapped them, because they dry out, then they become very brittle. So we want to avoid that. These are quite moist. I've fed our pastry onto a board here, and you need to sort of allow the strips to go in one direction and tease it into such a way that you've got a piece of pastry about 15 by about 23 centimetres. That's about 6 by 8 inches. It's a rectangle. Here's some that's ready to go. I'm going to fill this now, but before we do that, I'll just move that out the way, swivel this around. We're going to butter the pastry. That's a vital step. We've got our melted unsalted butter. Now this buttering makes the pastries very rich and crisp and delicious, and you'll need to do this for every one of your pastries. Now this is about 1/8 of the quantity of your pastry. So this recipe makes 8 big logs of Kataifi, which are then cut in half, so you end up with 16 beautiful specimens of Kataifi. There's other things you can put inside Kataifi, by the way. I've seen ones filled with custard and filled with jam, but the nut filling is my favourite. Okay, that's pretty well drenched with butter. Now we need to take a portion of filling, place it on the end and roll up the pastry. Let me show you how that's done. Take a good portion of pastry filling. Take a good portion of filling and place it on the end of your pastry, like so. Now, we need to carefully, grasping the ends of the pastry, like so, we need to roll it into a log. Very tight log. Use your little fingers to stop any of the nuts falling out. You'll lose a few on the bench, but it's part of the fun of Kataifi making. A very tight log, like so. And then we need to place it on a baking dish. Now, under my bench here, I have a beautiful batch of Kataifis that I haven't baked, of course, and I've just got room for one more, and I think this is the one. So we'll carefully lift our pastry and sit him in there ready to go. Now, that spot was made for him. What we need to do now is to preheat our oven to 190 degrees Celsius. That's 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to pop them in, bake them for 50 to 55 minutes on a shelf above the center. Before I go, I'm just going to butter them with a wee bit more butter. This guarantees that your Kataifi are nice and golden brown on top. When they come out of the oven, we're going to drench them with our beautiful fragrant syrup. And they're best left overnight, actually, for that syrup to fully soak in, and then you can serve them. So let's place our Kataifi in the oven. These are looking wonderful. Fragrant Kataifi. Now, all we need to do at this point is to ladle on our syrup onto our hot pastries, like so. Oh, look at that, and it's soaking it all up. One thing about Greek sweets is they're very sweet, but I must say they're one of my favorites. Now this syrup, as I said, is redolent with lemon, cinnamon, and it's just absolutely appropriate for our wonderful Kataifis here. Sticky, sweet and delicious Kataifi.